Are you thinking about building a house? Are you thinking about all the decisions you'll be making while you're building that house? Well, we have got some tips for you, and we're going to be talking about allowances, which is kind of like spending the builder's money. We'll explain. So enjoy this episode of the Realtor Moms Podcast.
Thanks for tuning in to the Realtor Moms Podcast. I'm Tasha.
And I'm Jamie. We're full-time realtors in the Fargo-Moorhead and surrounding areas, and admittedly average moms. This is how we sell homes.
And try to keep our kids alive. Hello, everyone. Jamie and I here from Realtor Moms Podcast.
Hello.
Yes, and we are going to be talking about an important time of the year in the real estate industry, and that's new construction and how to spend the builder's allowance money.
Right.
So, yeah.
It's fun to spend somebody else's money.
But, I mean, essentially it's your money, but it's the allowance amounts that we're talking about today.
It's fun to think that you're spending someone else's money, but
Exactly.
Yes, at the end of the day, building a house is so much fun. It can be incredibly stressful, but if you're looking at wanting to customize some things and make a home truly yours and have those special touches, I think there's a lot of builders out there that, in our area, we've got great options to choose from.
Great options.
And lots of them provide either allowances or sometimes promotions, which are basically dollars that are factored into the price that are allocated to you to make some choices with.
Choices for selections in a home and things to think about. And we really want to give people an idea of what are some smart areas to spend that money on.
Exactly.
So
there's a million ways to do it, and it kind of depends. Some of these things are going to be like creature comfort things. Some of these things are going to be our recommendations for a better ROI or return on your investment.
Correct.
But we've kind of put together a list for you on, if it were us or based on what we've seen in our careers, what we would suggest on how to spend that builder's money.
Yes, exactly. So
take it away. What's one of your first things that you would recommend?
Okay,
not to skimp on or to use some of that allowance money on.
And this was the very first thing that came out of my mouth, and it is flooring. Flooring from that plank flooring or hardwood or which hardwood isn't something we always necessarily agree with up here. Carpets, padding, and what makes sense for you and how you live as part of it.
Yeah. And we had a little pre-recording discussion about this because I said, what if they're getting a puppy? But ultimately that is part of this discussion, like knowing yourself and knowing what the next, the first few years in this brand new home is going to look like for you. Maybe you're going to have 3-4 puppies or messy children, or usually depends on what you're expecting. But in that case, maybe you don't want to go for the top of the line. You want to save some of that allowance and allocate it somewhere else. But in a lot of cases, I think
in that case,
what Tasha's really getting at is
I would tell people, okay, go with the cheap carpet, but put the nice pad down. That maybe those dog liquids doesn't sink in and
true.
Maybe you want to go that route.
That's very true.
Or maybe if instead of being, and this is very much out of style nowadays, you see a nice kind of solid flooring throughout on a main level nowadays. But if you're like my husband and want that carpet in the living room, just go with an area rug.
Oh yeah,
because it's better, just better.
Well, here's the other thing: if you cannot decide between hard surface flooring and carpeting in a common area, or really in any space, right, bedroom, living room, you can get almost any carpet that you've ever seen in your entire life edge wrapped and turn into a huge area rug.
Exactly.
Granted, it's then going to cost you double, right? Like, don't get me wrong. And you're still going to need to buy a pad that's going to work for that new quote unquote rug you just created. But that is one good way of kind of satisfying both
parties.
Yes.
An option. One thing to think about too, now they have water resistant or waterproof flooring. So if you could see
LVPs,
correct.
Luxury vinyl plank flooring.
Yeah. And that might be a better option, or you do have those animals that you think could scratch up a flooring. Maybe you don't want to go with that hardwood because it doesn't make sense because it'll end up scratched.
Right.
So you have to kind of take a look at how you live, but I'm always a big proponent of really talking about a client's personal, their personal lives and how they live, and what that flooring choice would be best for their situation.
Totally.
So.
And the last thing I'll say about flooring is it has a huge impact. Because
it does.
It is 25% of everything you see in your room.
Correct.
So keep it relatively neutral. Probably not a great idea to go extremely wild or extremely trendy.
And what makes sense for the price point of your home. That's always one thing I really want to point out with everything you're looking at. What's the price point of your home? What is expected? And that's where Jamie and I can really add quite a bit of insight and help. And we do that all the time for our clients. So
you're right. Can we talk about the kitchen for a second?
Yes.
So this is one of, like, when I was thinking about this, that's the first thing I wrote down is I would spend a lot of allowance money in the kitchen. And
it's the heart of the home.
It is. And it's like, there's no secret that a lot of times people say spend your money on kitchens and baths. And it's because it makes sense. Something I've been seeing people do recently is really look into maybe those larger than average appliances.
Yes.
Maybe they don't want to do a deep freeze in the garage or something, and so they want to do a bigger side-by-side 2 separate unit refrigerator and freezer. Maybe they want to do like a little bit extra wide range so you can get a couple more burners or a larger oven or more cooking space. The reason you're going to want to really look into that, if that's something that interests you, at the time of the build is because that's going to change your cabinet outlay. Soon as you introduce larger than average appliances, you're going to need to consider
redoing your cabinetry.
Your cabinetry. So it's not something that's really easy to do later, I guess, is why I bring that up.
That's a very important piece to this, something to think about. I'm going to talk about those creature comforts for a second since we're in kitchens.
In the cabinet?
Yes, I'm going to talk about cabinetry upgrades. And again, this is not something you'll definitely see in terms of return on your investment, but for how you live and what's comfortable, does it make sense to take those cabinets all the way up to the ceiling?
Sure.
Do you need the space, or do you want those pullouts in your cabinetry?
A great option if you don't have room for a pantry.
Correct. Do what do you want for those cabinetry upgrades that make sense for how you live? Because everyone's lives are a little bit different. You have to figure out what's going to make the most sense for you to make your life comfortable, and will that make sense with the build and for the price of those upgrades. So
totally. Yeah, I love those ideas, like the custom spice racks and the utensil holders and all that stuff. It again, like Tasha said, it doesn't necessarily maybe add value dollar for dollar right to the home. However, if it makes all the difference in the world to you on how you cook or entertain or enjoy your kitchen, and that's something that's again harder to do later, then it's
something to think about.
Something you should think about.
Correct.
Yeah. My next big one was lighting, but probably not how you think.
No, not how you probably think.
So I feel like maybe our listeners, the first thing when I say, yes, upgrade your lighting, they're thinking, great, enormous chandelier. And that's not what I mean.
What she means
I don't actually mean the fixtures that hang from your ceilings or walls. I mean the options for lighting.
Yes.
So adding additional cans on separate switches so you can adjust
recessed
them.
lights. Yes.
Yeah, more recessed lighting, dimmers and layers of lighting, under and above cabinet lighting.
What about adding in the wiring to add fans into the bedrooms?
Into the bedrooms, right. And you don't necessarily even need to put that fan in. Say it's going to be a bonus room or spare room or whatever. Maybe it's a room above a garage. You might find out that, oh gosh, one day we decided to turn that into our workout room. And man, it would have been nice to have a fan in there. And a lot of fans can be operated by remote now too. But gosh, if you've got some extra wiring in those walls, there's a lot more things that you can do with it just by kind of preparing for that at the front end during your build.
Correct.
So, but yeah, my general recommendation is not to overspend on the actual individual fixtures, because over time, or even not too long after you move in, you may want to customize them a little bit more than right off the bat.
Correct.
And it can be super overwhelming and get really expensive really fast. Lighting is beautiful. It is.
Lighting is beautiful.
But it's an easier thing to do later if you've been smart on the front end with the wiring.
I will say this, I've helped a lot of people build over the last couple years, and I will say time and time again, it seems like the lighting allowance is never quite enough.
It's never enough. That's a great point.
So maybe it's something to think about if you're, making sure you're planning for that appropriately.
Yes. I shouldn't say it's never enough, but so commonly it is a little bit shy.
It's a little bit shy. So, one thing I want to talk about is adding height to your rooms.
Oh,
think about that 9-foot basement. Think about if you...
So standard is 8.
Yes.
If you're
do you want that 8 foot, or do you want to extend that space? I find many times that is, you can't change it later. You just cannot.
That would be a near impossible.
Near impossible.
Yeah.
So
that's a great point.
This is one thing. If you shoulda, coulda, woulda. I wish we would have, me and my husband would have added that height to our space, but, can't go back and change it.
It makes a huge difference. You don't really think about it because it's above your head and it's an extra foot. I mean, not many of us are 8 feet tall.
But it just makes a space feel larger.
Yes, and it gives you more opportunities to change your lighting. Again, if you wanted that family room with a light that isn't totally flush mount, or you do a custom bar and you want a light that hangs down kind of over the bar area in your basement, I mean, pool tables, whatever. Having a little bit higher ceiling is just going to make the room feel bigger. It's generally not super, super expensive, and it's worth every penny every time, I think.
Yes.
Or vaulting upstairs.
Vaulting, too.
And that can get a little pricier, but look into it.
Yeah, this is something you can't change later, and if it's important, this is something to really look into.
It is literally buying wow factor.
Correct.
And who doesn't want to have that welcome inside, welcome home feeling when you walk in, if it's reasonable.
I can say every time I show one of a 3-level split and people walk into the main level, the kitchen, living room, dining room,
volume
and
ceilings.
those double volume ceilings, every single time I get a wow.
Yeah, right. Oh, totally.
So
along the same lines of that, windows. Don't skimp on your windows.
Don't skip on windows.
And think about the direction of the sunlight, the morning light, the afternoon light, where you're going to be at different points of time in the house, where you're most likely to be. Because, again, windows are just one of those things that make it really, really hard to change later, or really expensive to change later.
I've never had someone come back and be disappointed with the extra windows that they put into a home.
Totally.
I've never had that happen. If anything, I've had more people come back and say, gosh, I wish I would have added more windows.
Completely.
Every single time.
Yes.
So.
Right. No, and think about where you want them, not only from the way that it lays out on a plan, like a blueprint, but also in the master bedroom. Where are you going to put your dresser or your chest of drawers, or where are you going to hang your TV? So moving windows around, or maybe doing transom or windows kind of up high, so that you can still have a place to hang that TV or put that tall chest of drawers, or that floor, those leaning floor mirrors that are super popular.
Correct.
Yeah, you want to allow for space for some of that too. And you can't always foretell what you're going to put in your room, but don't skimp on windows, don't skimp on light. That's a good one.
One thing that I think is important to bring up is, if, let's say, you have a 2-story home and you're not planning to finish the basement, adding the sheetrock for when you do finish the space, or if you're going to put a tub shower combo surround unit in the basement, in the bathroom. Put it in before you you finish your property.
That is such a clever thought. So when you're working with your builder, ask them, if you're leaving some of the basement space unfinished, ask them about rough-ins, right? Like, maybe it's just a good idea to have them do some of that plumbing work before all the walls go up, or all of the concrete is poured, so at least you know where things are going to be with the drains, and maybe roughing in electrical. But yes, like Tasha said, bring that big behemoth one-piece shower booth
and put it in.
If that's what you're going to need, those enormous fiberglass things.
Put them in the space.
Yeah,
so that way you're not having to figure out how to get it into the basement later.
Beating up the walls with 3 of your neighbors, paying them with Bud Light, and bringing it down the stairs.
When you get old enough, your neighbors are going to be. I don't know if beer is going to be enough. Don't go talk to the Swensons. They're going to put you to work. I don't know if beer is going to be enough. Yes. You get old and your back hurts.
I know. And sheetrock, same thing. Sometimes your builder can work with you to get you even a count on how much you're going to need, and they can have it delivered. It's not like building products are getting cheaper.
No, they're not.
So if you don't finish this space for a few years,
you'll save money.
You probably have saved money. I mean, who knows, right? But
we could be
wrong.
You're
probably not going to end end up spending any extra.
Exactly.
So, I think I've got just a couple left. Custom paint. No.
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
You're going to change it faster than you know, and it does cost a lot, and it takes the builder extra time. Reminder, get a drain pan underneath your washing machine if it's not on the basement level, in case that thing ever overflows. I don't care if it's a front loader, top loader, whatever. That few $100 or maybe it's $500, I don't know, but that drain pan underneath your washer is going to save you a heck of a lot of money if that thing ever leaks and you don't catch it until it's bleeding through the ceiling of the level below you.
Trust me, you don't want to clean up that mess.
What else? Floor drains in the garage.
Yes, floor drains in the garage.
Don't skimp on that.
Don't. One thing to really think about, sump pump. If your home builder doesn't already do this, sump pump bypass and backup systems for your sump pumps.
You bet. And along those lines is a radon mitigation system. It's mandatory in the state of Minnesota already. I feel like North Dakota is going to be on their heels. It's common. Radon is elevated quite often in our area. Just put in the mitigation. Yep. It can be passive, which just means it doesn't have a fan attached to it.
But at least you have all of the pipe work there, and you're ready to add it if needed.
Totally. And two more things: zone heating
and air exchangers.
Those are good ideas too. Thanks for listening. Thanks so much for listening. If you liked what you hear, you can check out our library of tons more episodes on RealtorMomsPodcast.com. You can also find us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or just about anywhere you listen to podcasts. And please never hesitate to reach out. We would love to be your realtors. This podcast is produced by Realtor Moms Podcast, Jamie R. Swenson and Tasha Barrett, Park Company Realtors, 4170 41st Avenue South, Fargo, North Dakota.